Hey folks, can you hear me okay? I think you can. At least it looks good on my end. So, welcome to another Storytime with Max. If you don't know me, I'm Max Porter, writer, board game designer, lore keeper, editor, stream runner, and various other things here at City State Entertainment as we work on Camelot Unchained. You hear me better when I'm on the couch. I guess that's the directionality of the mic. Hello, Ludoween. Last time I did a story time with Max, I read through most of part 1 of the Silverhands Becoming story. The Becoming Silverhands. And today I'm going to finish part 1. So this will be a pretty short story time, actually. Short but sweet, or maybe a little disturbing. In what I've read before, we met our hero of sorts, Nuada Silverhand, although he's not called Silverhand yet, just Nuada. He was the king of the Tuatha De Danann. He had a boyhood friend named Bress, who he practiced with until Bress finally started losing ground with Nuada and left. Perhaps not on the best of terms. He left the Tuatha De Danann lands. Later, as Nuada became a king, he became obsessed with his own glory and gaining power. And later still, Bress came back as a traitor and with an army and wielding strange weapons and powers. And so in the course of a fight that Nuada seemed at first to be winning, Bress turned it around and cut off Nuada's arm at the elbow for now. And then as Nuada was surprised and in pain but alive, then Bress ordered his army to attack the wild hunt that Nuada had brought with him. And that is where we're going to pick this up once again. And as I said, I'll just reiterate, this will be a short story time, not a long one, because there's only 3 pages to read remaining in part 1 of The Becoming the Silverhands. And I'll go a couple paragraphs back as well. So, shocked and saddened at the humiliation of their greatest hero, the Wild Hunt was unprepared for the onslaught. The invaders fell eagerly upon the Tuatha De Danann, destroying them with frightening ease. Bress's troops continued their butchery until the last of the Tuatha De Danann and all of their horses lay dead, bodies scattered piecemeal on the blood-stained sand. Bleeding, weakened, and ashamed, Nuada watched through a haze of pain. He could do nothing. His legend was shattered, stolen along with his people by the traitor who knew all his moves before he made them, and seemed to have an unnatural energy that drove him relentlessly onward to greater betrayals. Bress ordered his men to collect all the heads of the slain soldiers. He put these bloody trophies in a sack made of human skin. Lighting a torch, Bress set his teeth in the same morbid grin. He grabbed Nuada and thrust the burning brand into the stump at his shoulder. He cut it off with his shoulder. Nuada shook, barely conscious of the pain, as his wound was sealed. When Bress released him, the mutilated former king slumped over, eyes rolling back in his head. Bress tied Nuada's ankles to the saddle of his own puka and threw the dripping sack of heads over its back. Mounting up himself, he pointed out a direction with his twisting sword. "Noble steed, ride now for me, your king. Ride to our old home in Tir Nanog. Unload your burden, and then return to the fleet. And there's no need to be gentle with your passengers." This last elicited a snort of laughter from his followers. Bress turned from his vanquished friend and strode toward the idol of Baelor, the awful bulbous statue that loomed over all. The puka was weirdly delighted, winking its bloodshot eyes at these orders. The mare sped off, determined to make quite a job of it. She sought out the most uneven terrain on the long run, crossed freezing streams, leaped through gullies, and found ingenious ways to batter Nuada's body as it dragged behind. Sharing a twisted idea of success with Bress's sick mind, the horse delighted in the moans that came from her weakened victim. It was a long and painful journey to the capital city of Tir Nanog. There, where the ancient stone walkway swept up to ornate golden gates, the puka finally paused. Rearing up on her hind legs, she dropped the leathery sack of heads on the stone walkway, where it hit with an unpleasant squelch and thud. Its form shimmered and shifted, and the puka became an attractive woman. Dark hair, knotted and thick with sweat and blood. She loosened the rope that bound her to Nuada's unconscious body, then spread her arms in a gesture of greeting. The woman proceeded to the gate and announced in a high, discordant voice, "Hear me, O great city. Your new king is on his way. You have 7 passings of the sun to prepare a suitable welcome." Not waiting for a response from the baffled gate guards, she spun on her heel and strode haughtily away from the city, as if daring those within to shoot her in the back. When they found their fallen hero Nuada and the sack of heads, all that was left of the wild hunt, the folk of the city crumpled to their knees and wept, felled in place as if struck dead. Their hero fallen, all the children of Danu would soon follow. A Hamadryad healer carried Nuada inside the city and tended to his many injuries, though he did not awaken for a full day. When he finally regained consciousness, he found himself at the high courts, relating his sorry tale. His face grew hot with shame at his failure. The speaker of the high courts publicly rebuked and chastised him, as no one had ever dared before. "You should have listened to our advice and used caution. Now your foolish eagerness has weakened us and taken many brave soldiers to defiled graves." None of their censures hurt him quite so much as his beloved granddaughter, Morrigan. Rather than speak, she simply changed her form to that of a crow, and flew over his head 3 times, before disappearing into the trees outside the court. It was a symbol, hearkening back to an old omen of doom. Nuada felt what remained of his pride melt like snow in a hot fire. Over the remaining days, the members of the courts met over and over, debating endlessly. Everyone thought they knew how best to react to the sudden change in the fate of their people. Some argued for resistance, ignoring the pact that Nuada made by challenging Bress to that fateful duel. They argued that Bress had broken many traditions, and besides, Nuada had received the blessing of the courts beforehand. Other members of the courts argued for the importance of their honor and urged surrender. Nuada could not attend every gathering. He was in and out of consciousness, his battered body barely holding together. While the healer was able to speed the overall healing process, she could not restore Nuada's arm. Nuada rarely spoke to her, seeking solace in sleep, but he found that even there he could not escape, for his dreams were torturous. As he was healing, Nuada saw many things. He saw his people failing, their bright lives cut short. He saw darkness deep in the heart of chasms that went on forever. He saw the disturbing architecture and caves of the depths. And he saw the foul creatures that dwelt within, twisted and cruelly malformed things that made him shudder in his sleep. Each night ended with the same nightmare. His arm flew from his shoulder and landed on the sand. His blood poured from it, forming a crimson river. The blood flowed past him, bubbling and oozing, then sank through the sand and vanished. His limb lay twitching, surrounded by the broken pieces of his father's sword. On the 6th day, Nuada managed to stay awake longer. He felt empty and brittle, like an eggshell that had been drained of its yolk. The king's confidence had been replaced by humiliation and a seething anger. But his anger did not burden his belly for those he'd let down. There was nothing he could direct at the enemies of his people. He was not angry because he'd lost the kingdom, or even for his friends in the hunt, but simply because he had lost the fight. Try as he might, Nuada found he could not care for anything else. His glory was shattered, stolen from him, like his arm, by a superior foe, and that was all that mattered. Disgusted with himself, Nuada decided to flee the city and seek the place where Bress had gone, that place of unknown power called the Depths. Grabbing the broken pieces of his sword, Nuada left without a word to anyone. Glancing back at the tree-ringed city, he swore he would never return unless it was to kill the traitor, Bress. As the old king set off on his quest, Bress's army descended upon the unguarded city, which swiftly surrendered to its new master. Though he had abandoned them, Nuada was disappointed when he looked over his mangled shoulder at the white flags waving on the walls. They could have at least tried to defend his city. But he spared the people he'd let down only a few thoughts. Nuada turned his mind to the quest ahead and trudged on. For years, the crownless king traveled the realm, searching for the entrance to the depths. He went everywhere but to his brothers in Camelot. He could not bear to let them see his shame. Many folk had heard of the mysterious place in fable, but none could even guess at the location of the entrance. Nuada was often forced to take petty jobs to earn money for his travels. However, he never stopped searching for hints of his quarry in legends or dark rumors. Nuada resumed his training, bitter at the changes he had to make to accommodate missing an arm and his father's sword. He had to recover his confidence, find himself again. He had to find a way to make the blade sing again, to make it play the air with its deadly song once more. He had to abandon tricks and weak attempts at victory, to find new strength and power. He would need to be ready to fight once he found the depths. Nuada practiced fighting with his left arm. He learned new balance and footwork, and though all he possessed was a mundane one-handed sword, he pushed himself to reach the point where that would be all he needed. But every time he practiced, he was reminded of his mutilation at Bress's mad whim. Every time he couldn't hold more than one thing at once, every time he had to fight with his off hand, every time he couldn't lift as much weight as he used to, Nuada renewed his vow to kill Bress. It became his sole obsession. Thus ends part 1 of the Becoming Tale of the Silverhands. I hope you enjoyed. Let's see. Join us again for more streams. Tomorrow we're not having any streaming, but on Thursday we are going to have an office stream and an environment art stream with Dion, and that'll be followed by a Gauntlet of Death stream with me. So tune in for those things, and of course the end of week wrap up and Q&A and all the news update that we do on Friday afternoons. So thank you very much for listening. I will see you later, and probably publish part 2 of this rewritten version of the Silverhands Becoming story in the next newsletter. So look out for that too, if you're into lore. All right. Bye for now. See you later.